Episode 779.
The 4 stone statues were all knocked aside by Seven-Leaf One-Flower's charge, slamming heavily into the stone platform they had been standing on. Seven-Leaf Flower's reaction was quick. He was already leaping high, crashing down with a heroic charge. The 4 stone statues, still reeling from the blast, had barely steadied themselves before he knocked them flat. A torrent of attacks from the DPS players surged forward, and in an instant, a corner beneath the stone platform was so blindingly bright that the scene became impossible to make out. The space was too cramped. Many melee classes couldn't even get close, and they were shouting anxiously from the back.
"Here, have one,"
someone shouted, and a stone statue from within the encirclement suddenly charged forward. In front of it, Invincible Most Handsome had already run past, raising his sword in a dismissive gesture, a clear provocation aimed at the statue.
"You don't have to copy me this time."
Yi Shu still made a point of calling out to Seven-Leaf Flower.
I know.
The other party let out a chuckle.
Third tank.
The 3T he mentioned referred to the former off-tank. At Seven-Leaf One-Flower's call, he practically lunged forward on instinct, ready to throw himself into the fray.
Now, having seen Seven-Leaf Flower's impulsiveness, he understood what needed to be done. Activate Knight's Spirit, Valiant Charge, Righteous Valiant Leap. The 3 stone statues had no chance to fight back. The moment they tried to mount a defense, the Knight's charge sent them crashing to the ground.
The one still active, though, had been pulled aside by Invincible Most Handsome, and was now getting relentlessly pounded by the melee fighters who couldn't squeeze into the main scrum. The clerics were busy on that side too. Wudi Zujun Shuileng hadn't taken a scratch when facing 4, but now that he'd pulled one more, the stone statues kept landing hits on him, almost like he was deliberately giving the healers something to do.
Control the field. Throw the shururu.
Seven-Leaf One-Flower was directing the battle on this side. The witches dared not slack off. Their designated tank had given the order, so they scrambled to toss items and flick their sleeves.
Fourth tank.
When the situation started slipping out of control, Paris Polyphila immediately called for the 4th tank.
This 4th tank was ready. He activated Knight's Spirit, charged with valor, and executed a righteous valiant leap.
Under the original setup, that would have been the end of it. 4 people couldn't complete the rotation. The cooldowns on Charge and Heroic Leap weren't too long, but Knight's Spirit, that awakening ultimate, wasn't a shared skill under level 20. Its cooldown was measured in seconds. But with the current setup, the team also had a 5th tank, the one everyone thought would be sidelined. Now, sword and shield in hand, he stood ready, a tremor of excitement running through him. But adding one more person still wouldn't be enough to cycle the Knight's Spirit into Samsara. This loop was bound to break. But a glance at the health bars of the 3 besieged stone statues was all the experienced players needed to know the score. Though these stone golems were as tough as a normal dungeon boss, the number of players here wasn't the standard 5 or 10 from a small instance. With this many players attacking together, their DPS was several times that of a 5 or 10-man party. As long as you kept control and dished out the damage, killing them was about as fast as mopping up regular mobs. Now the 5th tank finally made his move, but once he finished this rotation of skills, his full control over the 3 stone statues would be over. Without Knight's Spirit, even using Charge or Heroic Leap, the impact was completely different. There was no way to knock down all 3 stone statues at once. The 3 stone statues were hanging by a thread, yet somehow they looked like they could hold on a little longer. At that moment, Seven-Leaf One Blossom found herself in a bind. The 3 stone golems' movements were controlled, but their aggro was completely unmanaged. Once the movement control was lifted, nobody had any idea who held their aggro. Now the aggro's all over the place. That's usually the opening track for a total party wipe.
Spread out.
Seeing that the 3 stone statues had indeed held their ground, Seven-Leaf Flower called out urgently, then unleashed another skill, Roar. All 3 stone statues were within range of his roar, so no matter how messy the aggro was, this attack had to come at him.
3 swords struck simultaneously. 7-leaf one flower raised his shield to meet them. A dull, thunderous crash rang out. He staggered back, his health bar plummeting by more than half in an instant.
If all 3 stone statues aggro locked onto him now, and they followed up with another strike, he was done for. But just then, another shout rang out as the tank used their skill, Taunt. 7-leaf flower breathed a sigh of relief, only to realize that despite buying them some precious time, the DPS were attacking without any rhyme or reason, a complete mess.
Hurry up!
Time's wasting. The 3 stone statues had burst out together, startling the DPS players. He knew they hadn't reacted in time, so he roared to snap them out of it. 7-leaf one flower was anxious. His shout jolted the DPS players awake, and they lunged at the stone statues, unleashing a furious assault on the spot where the 3 tanks had struck.
The 3rd tank parried the blow, but took just as much damage as 7-leaf one flower. By now, the 4th tank was ready, having already positioned himself at the perfect distance. He let out another roar, and the 3 stone statues immediately switched targets again. This time, no one needed to remind the DPS to chase. They were on it in a flash. Tank 5 had been itching for this moment. He picked the very edge of the taunt's range, aiming to make the 3 stone statues run as far as possible and buy more time. The chance to shine came quickly. 5T let out a roar, and 7-leaf one flower followed suit, shouting,
No!
5T was completely baffled. Weren't these 3 stone statues already here? He hit the mark perfectly.
Hey, behind you, watch out, dodge.
Scatter.
Everyone shouted, and only then did Tank turn to look. Crap, he'd forgotten about the 4th statue.
That roar brought not only the 3 stone statues, but also the 4th one charging straight at him.
The thought of all 4 stone statues striking at once was enough to drain the color from 5T's face.
He knew his own stats. His gear was already inferior to the top 3. There was no way he could survive that combined strike.
But just as that attack was about to land, another roar rang out, followed by a voice cutting through the chaos.
What's the rush? Isn't the MT still in the fight?
The moment the 4 stone statues were about to strike the 5th tank, they suddenly pivoted in unison, charging at a different target. As for the self-proclaimed MT, Invincible Most Handsome, well, no one had the time to care about his arrogance in that moment. Everyone understood what mattered most in that moment.
DPS now.
With their MT, 7-leaf flower, and team leader Joy Sheep both shouting encouragement, none of the DPS dared to slack off. At this final moment, no one bothered with the finer points of managing aggro, mana, or cooldowns. They just fired off their highest damage skills and let them fly. The path was instantly engulfed in a storm of skill effects, yet the 4 figures at its heart stood like drawn swords. The stone statues possessed strong resistance, so most control-type skills had no effect on them. At this point, everyone was simply focused on draining the last of their health.